Hi, and thank you for tuning in. Today's story is The Forgotten Envelope. The rain started just as Olivia Carter stepped out of the bank. She tucked her receipt into her purse, pulled up her hood, and hurried toward her car. It had been an ordinary morning of errands, depositing a check, grabbing groceries, and making a quick stop at the dry cleaner. She was halfway to her car when she noticed it. A plain white envelope lying on the wet pavement, half soaked but still sealed. Pausing, she bent down and picked it up. The envelope was heavier than she expected, and when she turned it over, she saw no name or address, only the faint impression of something thick inside. Back in her car, she hesitated before tearing the flap open. Inside was a stack of cash, neatly folded and held together with a paperclip. Olivia's heart skipped. There must have been hundreds, maybe even $1,000. No note, no explanation, just the money. She glanced around the parking lot, wondering if someone had dropped it recently. The rain blurred the few people hurrying by, none of whom seemed to be searching for anything. Olivia looked back at the envelope, her mind racing. Should she take it inside and report it? What if it belonged to someone who desperately needed it? But what if they never came back for it? Her errands forgotten, Olivia drove home, the envelope sitting heavily on the passenger seat. Once inside her apartment, she laid the cash on her coffee table and began to count it. $820. A strange number, she thought. Not a round sum, which made it feel even more personal, like it was meant for something specific. She spent the rest of the day distracted, the envelope constantly on her mind. She searched online for any recent reports of lost money in her area but found nothing. She checked the local community board at the grocery store and even called the bank to ask if anyone had reported missing cash. No one had. By evening, Olivia still had no answers. She thought about taking the envelope to the police but hesitated. She'd heard stories of unclaimed money disappearing into bureaucratic systems. What if this cash was someone's rent or an emergency fund they couldn't afford to lose? It didn't feel right to hand it over to strangers. The envelope stayed on her coffee table overnight, its presence both accusing and compelling. Olivia lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining the scenarios behind the money. A single mother rushing to the bank and dropping her last savings. An elderly person whose hands shook as they tried to place the envelope in their pocket. Or maybe someone who had saved every penny for a trip, a dream, only to lose it in a careless moment. But there was another thought, darker and harder to shake. What if the money was part of something illegal? A deal gone wrong? A payoff? The thought made her uneasy, but as the hours dragged on, another feeling grew stronger: responsibility. By morning, Olivia had made a decision. She couldn't keep the money. It wasn't hers. But she also couldn't ignore the thought that it was meant to help someone. She divided the cash into two portions. The first, for $100, she slipped into an envelope with a handwritten note. A gift to help with whatever you need. From someone who cares. Then she tucked it into the mailbox of her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Grant. Olivia often saw the widow in her garden, her movements slow but determined. They had shared conversations about rising medical bills, and Mrs. Grant's resilience had always impressed Olivia. This small gesture felt right. The second portion, another $400, went into a donation box at the local shelter. Olivia stopped by during her lunch break, handing the envelope to a volunteer who thanked her warmly. The shelter served families in need, providing meals, clothing, and temporary housing. Olivia didn't linger to explain herself or wait for recognition. As she walked away, she felt a weight lift from her chest, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. The $20 left over felt odd in its smallness after such a large decision. That afternoon, she used it to buy sandwiches and coffees for two homeless men sitting outside her office building. The gesture, though simple, left her smiling. Days later, Olivia saw Mrs. Grant at her mailbox. The widow's face was brighter than Olivia had seen in months, her steps lighter as she hummed a tune. Olivia couldn't bring herself to mention the money, instead exchanging pleasantries and walking away with a warm sense of satisfaction. The shelter sent a thank you email to all recent donors, detailing how contributions had funded meals for dozens of families. Olivia read the message twice, proud that the envelope's contents had made a difference. Weeks passed, and though she never heard about anyone searching for the money, Olivia couldn't help but wonder about its origin. Maybe the owner had given up hope of recovering it. Maybe they had more than they needed and hadn't even noticed its loss. Or maybe they, too, had left it behind as a choice, an unspoken trust in the next person to find it. The envelope's mystery faded into the background of Olivia's life, but its impact lingered. She began to notice opportunities for kindness in the everyday, buying an extra coffee for the overworked barista, tipping generously at the diner, offering a ride to a coworker stranded in the rain. Each small act felt like an extension of the choice she'd made that rainy morning. Sometimes it wasn't about solving the mystery. It was about deciding what to do with what you found.